So this is my old Daimler, which I rebuilt when I was a student, but it's been going ever since, which is say over 40 years now. But there are a few things I didn't have when I got the car, and I couldn't afford much at the time being a student. But I've added things as I've gone along. And one thing, for instance, was these labels for the switches. Turns out that they're the same as a Sunbeam Alpine. I discovered relatively recently, a few years ago now. So I was able to get some of those. Someone was remaking them for the Alpine, so it turns out that they're the same on the Daimler. So that's good with the proper mixture label and wiper and panel and lights, which are head and side. But what I didn't have, and haven't had for years, is the correct gear knob. This is the correct gear knob now, and I'm very grateful that one of the members of the club actually gave it to me. I came across 3D printing relatively recently, and have been using it for a number of years now, but I've made loads of parts for the Daimler as well as for other things at home. But it occurred to me, since I've been using these sort of generic gear knobs for donkey's years, ever since I got the car, and there's nothing wrong with them at all, they're perfectly functional. This is the most recent one. It's a leather covered with the Daimler badge on top. So that's been on there, say, up until quite recently. Perfectly good, but I always sort of hankered after having the right knob. So I thought I would maybe try and 3D print one. So I asked on the club forum, the Daimler Lanchester Owners Club forum, whether I could have a photograph or two of one of these, and I would try and make up a design and 3D print one. In the event, I got a few photographs back, which is great, but one of the members actually said, I've got a spare one, you can have it for free. So he very kindly sent that through the post, and it's now in the car. But having got as far as thinking about 3D printing, I thought I would just carry on and try and produce a model anyway, partly for my own interest and also it might be useful to somebody else. So that's what I've chosen to do, and I'll explain here. Okay, so by this stage I've got an original gear knob for myself, which is great, so I'm home and dry really. But I thought I'd press on with the 3D printing idea anyway, just for interest and in case it's of use to anybody else. So I took this knob, scanned it with my iPhone 16 Pro Max, which of course has the LiDAR sensor on the back, and that came up with a rough scan at least. So this is a scan of the gear knob, and yeah, I mean, it's not great. The overall shape is pretty good, but the lettering in particular is pretty rubbish. You can just about make out what the lettering is, but not really good enough to 3D print. Even photographing the knob, the definition of the original part is not great, and there's a few anomalies like this little bump here, and this line is sort of breaking up, and that's partly wear, I think, but also I'm not at all sure that the original moulding was that accurate or highly defined. So yeah, not a great starting point really. I don't think I could just print straight from the scan. So coming back to this scan, I took the measurements, well, from this and from the part itself, of course, and tried to sort of overlay geometrical objects to make up the same shape. So after quite a lot of fiddling about, this is what I came up with. There we go. So obviously the green and red parts and so on are the model I've built, or the objects I've built inside and around the scanned part. So it's not a perfect fit, but it's not far off. If I turn off the scanned object and just leave behind the geometry that I've overlaid on it, there we go, that cleans it up quite a lot. And yeah, that's the part. The lines here and the text are, I've just added using the CAD software. So though it looks hopefully similar to the original, it's entirely new, as it were. That's the layout on the actual gear knob, and what I've tried to reproduce here, which is 3D. Oops, stands proud of the top of the lever. The only other thing which I haven't really taken time to sort out, if you look back here again, there's got a distinct curve radius around the periphery of this top circle. I haven't implemented that here. What I have done is add a dome, which you probably can't see very well, but that top is domed, and the text sits proud of the domed surface. In terms of the internal structure, if I take away the outside, this is the recess that's inside the gear knob that I've designed. So there's space here for two 7/16 UNF nuts. This is 7/16 nut. This one happens to have a nylock insert, but yeah, having measured that, there's space for two of these inside the 3D printed part. This cone on top is there to give sufficient height, because the thread on the gear knob, sorry, on the gear lever in the car is surprisingly tall. It's 30 mm of thread, so there needs to be room in here for that entire gear lever thread to come up inside the nuts and have this lower side of the knob down on the smooth chromed part of the gear lever rather than exposed thread showing. So that's why that is so tall. It actually comes up to within a few millimeters of the top dome of the gear knob, which is fine. And my logic there is that primarily that it allows this to be printed in without any support on the 3D printer. It doesn't need any support material that needs to be removed after printing. But also having this sort of internal cone with a shell printed around it, it'll strengthen the gear knob. It actually turns the gear knob into a tube rather than a solid block, which is inherently stiffer. So I think with the two nuts in there and say this cone, it makes it easier to print and it'll be slightly stronger. So putting the outer surfaces back on, that's again the result. So in terms of actually printing them, the original, and this is the one I've started with, and you can see it's pretty much the correct size, which is good. Just putting the lettering on, the last couple of layers. This one is more recent, and just as a demonstration really, this has the recess in. So again, this nut will fit in here and could be glued in place. So two of them stacked up to give a bit of extra thread length. Obviously it'd be as well to have a bolt in there as these parts are glued in to make sure that the thread is coherent. But otherwise, the other good thing about 3D printing, I guess, is obviously you make it different colours. This is, I've chosen a bit of blue one just to demonstrate what can be done on the top. And the lettering is also in red rather than the same body colour. So yeah, anything's kind of possible once you've got it 3D printed. This is raw off the printer, so it needs a bit of a rub down perhaps to take off these marks. But yeah, you could print it in TPU, the rubber, thermoplastic polyurethane, or other materials for that matter. This is just PLA, cheap and cheerful. But yeah, having got this model, you could do other things with it. The only other point to point out is the nozzle size. Because of the size of these characters on the lettering, a 0.4 nozzle, so a standard 3D printing nozzle, isn't fine enough. So you need to go down to a 0.2 mm nozzle to get the definition, to get these letters to reproduce. With a 0.4 nozzle, on my printer at least, it just completely ignores the text and just prints the little the lines of the H. So yeah, all a bit bonkers really, and potentially pointless. Obviously, it's better to have an original knob if you can, but if you fancy or don't have that access to one and want to generate one that looks sort of plausible as an alternative, then you could 3D print one. Or if you just fancy just having something a bit different color, or say, in this case, layers of color. So yeah, or maybe just as a substitute that you don't mind getting stolen. If you're going to leave the car somewhere where the original gear knob might be taken. Anyway, yeah, it's a thought, and it's an interesting exercise for myself. But there you go. Thanks for watching.